If you're building a website using ACF or advanced custom fields, there will be a time where you need to add in search and filter functions. In this third installment of the Beginner's Guide to ACF and Elementor, we'll be doing just that. I'm going to take you through different tools and methods to add ACF fields to the built-in WordPress search, all the way up to building a multifaceted search and filter setup that can be used to build really advanced websites. So if you're ready to start, let's take a look at the first option in our list. Oh, and the timestamps for each section are listed in the description below for ease.
So firstly, let's take a quick look at what we're currently working with. I've created a very simple layout using a template that's part of Elementor, created some simple custom fields and a custom post type, the normal things you'd expect to do when you're working with the custom post types and ACF, pretty much what I've covered in the first two videos. Even though the design's different, the function's kind of the same. So if we take a look underneath, we've got some space on the left-hand side ready to drop in our filters, which we'll take a look at later on in this video. But at the top, we currently have this search field. Now, one problem you have when it comes to working with Elementor, WordPress, ACF, all those kinds of things together is that out of the box, WordPress does not support custom fields. In other words, we can't search them. So for example, if I just type in something like industrial, which is part of the title of one of these properties, and just search for it, we'll see we get the property result. So works perfectly fine. However, if I do something like Bristol, which is part of the address for one of these, which is in one of the custom fields, and we search for that, we get no results whatsoever because it's just not searching inside those fields. So to rectify that is actually really pretty simple, and we can do it for zero cost whatsoever. To deal with that, we're going to be using ACF Better Search. So we're going to install that and activate it, and then we are pretty much good to go. We just need to tell the plugin where to search. So we're going to come into settings, and we've got an option for ACF Better Search. In there, we've got our settings set up. So list of supported field types. We can choose what we want to search against. So we may not want to search emails or URLs or files, for example, but we may want to search the WYSIWYG, select checkboxes and things along those lines. So we'll say we want to use numbers. We'll say we want to use select, checkbox and radio buttons. Even though we're not using them at the moment, we're going to enable them. Whereas like I say, email, URL and file, we don't need that. A couple of extra options, search the whole phrases instead of each single word or phrase. You can configure this how you want to use it. So take a few moments, check through just to make sure you're happy with various different things and configure accordingly. We're going to save this and we're going to come back and test our page again. Back on our home page, we're going to just drop in the same search phrase, which was Bristol, and we're going to hit search, and we now find we get one property. And if we click to open this up, we have the property set in Bristol. Simple as that. So we've created a really easy way of searching. Is this the best, most optimal way of working? No, not really. But for most use cases, for a down and dirty way of just being able to search that ACF data on sites that are not massive with tens of thousands of records, it should serve you pretty well.
While adding in some basic ACF search options, you're going to come across situations where you need more but still don't have any room in the budget to add in filtering options. Don't worry though, I've got your back on this one. Enter search and filter for WordPress.
Now if you want a bit more control over searching and this time adding filtering in for zero cost again, we have search and filter, which is again a free plugin. It is limited, but it may be perfect for simple use cases. Now once search and filter is installed, you get a new entry, and this is where we can set things up. Now, what you have to understand with search and filter is it's all based upon shortcodes. So it can take a little bit of time to get used to, especially when you need to learn how the arguments work. In other words, what you want to filter, how you want to filter it, what you want to search, what different fields, where the data is going to come from, all those kinds of things. So it can seem quite overwhelming. But if you take your time, work through some examples, it's not that bad, but it does take a little bit of getting used to. So I'm going to really show you a pretty simple and straightforward setup right now. So this is the setup. You can see there's some shortcode examples which we can take a look at. We've also got PHP examples if you weren't using something like Elementor, which we are in this example. And then we've got the different names, the fields, headings, hierarchical, hide empty, and so on and so forth. So there's lots of different options inside there. But how do you use it? Okay, so let's come back over into our template. And inside there, we're now going to drop in the shortcode option. So we're going to just search for shortcode. We'll drag and drop that to the left-hand side. Now, it's worth bearing in mind at the moment that I still have ACF Better Search activated. If you don't have that activated when you're working with this, the search will work, but it won't search the normal ACF fields. It'll only search the standard WordPress fields. So just bear that in mind. That still expands it because we are still using the normal default WordPress search feature. Okay, so with everything said, what we need to do now is drop in the short code. Now I'm going to use a really simple one just to show you an example of how this works, and I'll explain it briefly for you. So we'll drop that inside there, and this gives us a search box and also a categories filter box and a submit button. Because one of the things you have with this is we don't have anything like Ajax, so you have to hit that submit button once you've made changes to any of this, be able to filter and search and so on. Okay, so what exactly does this do? Let me just open up a notepad and show you this in a little bit more detail. And let me just briefly explain what's going on. First thing we have is search and filter, and this is kind of like the trigger to say what this shortcode's for. We then have fields and headings in this example. Now, breaking that down into its component parts, fields is basically saying what fields do we want as part of our search and filter. You can see we have search and property type. Search is the default search option, and property type is a custom taxonomy that I've set up for my property type. So things like bungalows and houses and apartments and things like that. So that's what that is. Then the headings is effectively what's going to be used for each of these different fields. So we've got search and categories, and you can see it matches up. So I just put search at the top. If I just simply edit the shortcode and just change that to searches at the end, you can see that now changes the title of it. Simple as that. Nothing complex about it whatsoever. But this is a really simple example. But like I say, it should hopefully just demonstrate the basics of how this works, and then you can take your time to set it up the way that you would need. We'll update that page and we'll jump over then to a test and just try it out. First up, let's just try the search, and we'll do the same as before. We'll type in Bristol, we'll hit submit, and there's our Bristol property. We come back out to this and we'll just take that from there, and we'll change our property type to something like flat, submit, and you can see there's our flat. We change that to something different, so this time we'll just change this to house, for example, submit, we get a different property. And obviously you can combine these together, so you could say you wanted a house in Bristol, or an apartment in Edinburgh, whatever you want. So they're stackable. So it's quite cool that you can do it in that way. So like I say, this is a really simple bare bones way of working, and if budget is something that you have really small amounts for, and searching and filtering is something you can't really afford to spend money on, these may get you through in a pinch. However, there are better alternatives if you're willing to spend a little bit of money.
Okay, so you still need more. No worries, let's take a look at the next set of tools in contention. JetSmartFilters and JetSearch plugins make a pretty formidable set of tools. And if you think these only work with Crocoblock's Jet Engine plugin, you'd be wrong. We can still use them with ACF and benefit from the features on offer.
Now, we have a lot of options, so I'm only going to go through this briefly, but it's a good way of being able to add in quite comprehensive filters and searches. So let's add in our first filter. We're going to come to Smart Filters and we're going to say Add New. And from there, we can now go through and give this a name and do all those kinds of good things. So let's just say we want to set this filter up to be property type. Give it a name. Then we've got the filter label, which we can do the same again. So we'll just say property type, active filter label, property type. Now filter type, this is where we choose what type of filter we want to use. And we've got a range, things like checkbox, list, select, range, and so on. So it obviously depends upon the way that you set things up. So we're going to say this is going to be a checkbox list. So we're going to select that. Then we say the data source. We're going to choose our data source. We're going to say we want this to be taxonomies. And then you can see we can choose the taxonomy that's associated with this. So we can change that, and we're going to come down and choose property types. Then you've got your relational operator, which you can choose between union and intersection. And this is just how you want things to work, whether they stack on top of each other or whether they're sort of like and or. So in other words, one or the other has to be met, or all of the conditions can be met depending upon the type of filter you're creating. Do you want to show empty terms, which is a good way of hiding things if you don't have a property inside a particular section? You don't really want to end up with a massive hierarchy of sort of different categories you can go through when half of those might be empty. And then you've got options to show only childs of current terms. If you're using hierarchical, you can use that. Group terms by parents, again, if you're using hierarchical. Is the checkbox meta field Jet Engine? Well, we're not using Jet Engine, we're using ACF, so we can leave that unchecked. And then you've got the option to exclude or include, so we can choose whatever we want inside there. That's pretty much it. That's all we need to do. So we say We'll publish that. So you created our first filter. So now we need to integrate that into our design. Back into our template, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a search for filter. This now shows us all the different types of filters that we have available as part of JetSmartFilters. What we have to do and what we have to make sure of is that we choose the right filter type. So we created a checkbox filter. So we're going to drag and drop that into this section. And the next thing we need to do is select the filter. We're going to click and we can just start typing. So we can say property, and there's our property types. So we'll select that. And the nice thing with this, with a search filter where you type it in, is it will only show you filters that are associated with that particular filter type. So if we hadn't created a checkbox filter, we wouldn't find anything inside you. So you can't accidentally have the wrong filter type pulled into the wrong widget, if that makes sense to you. So you can see now that shows us all of the different property types we have available. Now, because we're using advanced custom fields instead of Jet Engine, we do need to set something up. This filter is for, we need to set that inside there. And for this example, we're going to be using Elementor Pro Posts, because even though it's a custom post type, it's still using the Elementor Pro Posts feature. So we'll select that option. And you can see it tells us, please set JetSmartFilters into the query ID option of the post widget you want to filter. Now that might sound a little bit confusing and you might think you've got to place it underneath here, but don't. All you need to do is come over to the actual post widget itself. So this is the post section. You can see edit posts. We're going to scroll down until we get to query, expand that, and inside the query ID, we're going to just simply drop in that JetSmartFilters code, hit update. And now we come over and test our page. We'll refresh this to make sure that it is up to date. And now we do something like flat, for example. We see there's our flat. We want to say apartment. There's our apartment. Penthouse. You can see there's our penthouse. So really easy to set up, and we can build these up. We can build more of these up if we want to. So we can set these up in different locations, different taxonomies, lots of different ways in which you can use it. But it's a really easy way and be able to set up filtering. Next up, let's add a search in. So we're going to add search. I'm going to drop in the Ajax search. We'll pop that at the top. What we're going to do now is we're just going to set up the basics. Now you can go through and you can fine tune this to get what you want. So you can things like category list, responsive form for mobile and so on. Take your time to look through those. I want to show you just basically how the function works. So the most important thing we need is the search query. We're going to click on there and we're going to say, what is the source we want to use? Now for this example, we want to limit this to properties, but you can stack these as you need to. So depending upon the kind of site, kind of content you want to search for, you can add extra different sources inside there. You then have options then to include and exclude if you want to get really refined on how you want to do it. But what we want to do is search in the custom fields. So we're going to simply drop in the name of the custom fields. Now I'm going to pop those inside there, separated by a comma. Now, if you're wondering where do you get this information from, let me just open up the ACF field group a second, and then we'll take a look at exactly where this data is stored. Hopping back into our custom fields and our field group for our property extras, you can see we have these labels, property underscore name and address. These are the field names. So we're going to use those. That's exactly what we've done. We've got property price, comma, address. So we're saying we want to search inside those fields. You then have extra options for the number of posts per page, the results area, and things like that. So you can fine tune this to your heart's content. We're going to just say update on there, and we're going to give this a quick test. So back onto our homepage, and let's just come to our search area at the top and start typing in Bristol, for example, and boom, there you can see there's our industrial way. In a nice Ajax search, we can click and we can go and take a look at that actual property. So really nice way of adding a nice Ajax search in there that gives immediate user feedback. Now there are other options for searches inside JetSmartFilters and JetSearch, so I would say it's worth taking a look at, but even just using it in its basic form like I've just shown you now gives you a ton of options. So with filters and searches, JetSmartFilters and JetSearch provide a really good option for you.
Now, if you're on a really tight budget and don't mind getting your hands dirty, then Search and Filter Pro may be the perfect option. Coming in at around $20 for a single site license, most project budgets should be able to stretch to including it.
So let's start this section off with taking a look at a search. So if we take a look, we've got the search box like we've had before, and we're just going to type in, same again, we'll do Bristol. We'll hit enter, and you can see that takes us through to a Bristol property. If we come back and we'll try Cardiff this time, and we could take a look, you can see there's our Cardiff-based property. So at first glance, this might just seem like it's doing exactly the same as we've seen before. However, we have a lot more control now by using Search and Filter Pro. Now I'm just going to say that I've also still got the ACF Better Search plugin installed and activated, simply because it makes the whole process of making your custom fields filterable and searchable, it's just so much easier. So I would say, unless you want to get your hands dirty getting stuck into all these different settings and so on, and you want to just have a simple life, leave that little plugin installed and activated. It is just a bit of a lifesaver. Okay, so what do we have and why is Search and Filter Pro going to open up so many more options? Well, let's come and take a look at our search and filters. Now, I've already created one called Full Search, but I'm going to create a new one now just so you can see how it works. Now, before we start, I will say the Search and Filter Pro is an incredibly powerful plugin, but it's not the easiest when you start working with it. There's so many options that can be absolutely overwhelming. The other thing you need to take into consideration is if you're using Elementor Pro, you'd have to set things up to work with Elementor Pro. Straight out the box, it's a little bit different to what you'd expect. So there is a free plugin to install as part of Elementor Pro and Search and Filter Pro. You can download that from their website. I'll put a link in the description to that so you can check that out. That means that we can link through various different functions into our templates, into the pages we create and so on. So you kind of create that bridge between Search and Filter Pro and Elementor Pro. Okay, so let's create our search. So what we're going to do is we're going to give this a name. So add a new search form, and we're just going to call this property search. Okay, so now this is where I'm saying that this is a complex feeling plugin. But once you get used to it, and once you take your time to go through it, it's not that bad. And I do have a tutorial that's dedicated to this, which again, I will link in the description. So if you want to learn a little bit more about this, how it works, check that out. I go into more detail. But I'm going to quickly go through this and create a really, really simple setup. So search in the following posts, and you can see all of the different post types available throughout our entire copy of WordPress are all listed here. We don't want to search posts or pages, but what we do want to search is properties. This is just going to be a property search and nothing more. Now you can come through and you can choose all the different options that you want. So you can see we've got things like how many results on the page. Do you want the form to be auto submitted? Do you want a field relationship of and or? So if you have multiple options when it comes to searching and filtering, you can say whether you want them to be a case of one or the other has to be met, or you want every different criteria to be met to show the search results. I'm going to leave that set to and. I'm not going to worry about counts and so on. What I am going to do though is choose which kind of search and filter we'll try to do on these pages. We're going to say post, and we're going to do the tag and categories. Not going to worry about authors because that's not relevant. Okay, so now if we come underneath, we've got basically our search builder. And you can see we have tons of different options inside here, but we really want to keep this super simple. We're simply going to add a search field inside there. And then we can configure whatever we want. So we're just going to call this property search, leave it at that. And we'll put property search in the box below for screen readers for good practice. So what we've done now is we've created our search form, and we've just said we only want to search through properties. We're going to use post category, archives, and taxonomies and all those kinds of things when it comes to how we can search. And then we're going to say there's our search form. That's it done. We do have a couple more things we need to do though. So next, if we jump over to the display results, we need to set where this is going to be displayed. We need to have a template created to output our search results. Now, at the moment, we don't have that done. So we need to do that in a moment. But we can't do that inside here. We need to do this as part of Elementor's templates. So we'll leave that as it is, and we'll come back to that in a moment, and I'll show you how all of that works. Then we're going to jump over to posts, and we can choose what type of post status do we want to display results. So obviously, if this is a front-end search, not something you want to make private, you'd only want to have published posts to be displayed inside here, but you do have other options, pending, draft, and so on. So depending upon you want to set your search up, you can choose what options you want inside there. Do you want to deal with sticky posts? What's the default order you want to use? And you can see there's a ton of different options inside there, so you can configure this to get exactly what you want. If we hop over to the tags, categories, and taxonomies, we can now choose what to include and exclude. So for this example, we only want property types to be included in this. We don't want things like Elementor font types and so on. So we're going to set all of these to exclude except for the property type option. So this just cuts down searching against things that are not relevant. So it means that our search results should be considerably faster. Come over to the post meta, and if you want to add in conditions inside here, so you may say you only want to match certain metadata, well, you could do that. And again, this is where you can really get in and refine your search. Finally, we have the advanced option. And if you've got the relevancy plugin installed, you can enable this, and then you can sort those results by relevance. I don't have that inside here. So you can say forces search always be true. Again, advanced features. Take a look at the documentation if these are things that you think you need. I'm going to keep it like this. We're going to hit publish on there. Now we might get an error message because we haven't created a search results page yet. So don't worry, we're going to do that next. So I've come over into the theme builder of Elementor Pro, and we're going to choose the option for search results. Once we've done that, we're going to create a new template, and we're just going to call this search results, and we'll say create the template. We'll let Elementor load in, and we're just going to choose a template, but you can use the posts widget and work with that and build your own design around it. There's nothing more than that about it, and I'll show you how that works in a moment. So we're going to use this just to insert the design into our page for speed, and I'll just quickly edit this header so it falls in line with everything else. There we go. Okay, so this is our posts loop widget. So this is just going to be using the standard post widget, nothing more than that. What we're interested in though is the query option, and this is where we can configure things. Now, if you've seen any other videos where I've created and used the posts widget, you'll see that we've got the source available and we can choose a range of different sources. For this, we want the search and filter query, and this is where that link plugin between Search and Filter Pro and Elementor Pro comes into play and gives you these extra features to make this whole process really quite straightforward. So we say search and filter query, then we've got to tell it what filter query we want to use. I'm going to click on there, and the one we've just created is property search. So we'll choose that option, and that'll pull the data in for us, and then we'll just put in a nothing found message and leave that at the end. Okay, so we are pretty much done on building the template. So let's publish this template, and we'll add a condition, and we'll set this to be our search results. We'll save and close, and we have created our results page. Now we need to grab the link for this search results page, and the easiest way of doing that is to simply view this. So we'll just click on view, open up a new tab, and at the top you can see there's the link to the page. But you also see we have this Elementor library link in the middle of it. We don't need that, so I'm going to delete that from there, put a / at the end, and I'm simply going to copy this. So this is the full link to that template page, which is going to be used for our search results. Heading back over to the settings for our property search inside Search and Filter Pro, we need to come out to the display results section, and from there change this as an archive and change that to custom. Once we've done that, we can now drop in the link that we've just copied, and we're just going to paste that inside there, and there's our search results. Finally, let's just hit the update button, and we've now confirmed that. You can see the error message is now gone. Next, we need to add that search field into our design. So I'm back on the home page in Elementor. I'm just going to search for search, and you'll see we have an option called search and filter form. We're just going to drag that down into our page, and you can see we can now choose to give this a title. So we could say this is property search, and we can then choose which search form we want to use. So we can say there's our property search, and you can see everything is laid out nice and tidy. Alternatively, we could just delete that from here, and we'll do the same again. We'll do search, and you'll see we also have this search and filter form, which is basically the same widget, so it doesn't really matter which one you choose. This just doesn't give us the option to put that title at the top of it. So we'll do our property search, and you can see it works pretty much exactly the same. So we'll update this page, and we've now created our search, inserted it, and also created our archive search results page. So let's just test this out. We've done Bristol, we've done Cardiff, let's try Edinburgh this time. Hit enter, and we can see there's our Edinburgh Heights search result. Come back out, and again, just to test this, we'll do Cardiff, which is one of our custom fields, and inside there, you can see there's our Cardiff result. So that's the search. That's how we use Search and Filter Pro to create searches. Now let's take a look at how we can add some filters in as well. So I'm back in Search and Filter Pro, opened up our property search, and we're going to scroll down to our available fields and our search form UI. Now at the moment, we only have a search option inside here. But let's just say we wanted to add in something so we could allow people to choose what property type they wanted. So you could search, and then you could search inside property types. What we need to do is just pull in the extra available fields. So this time we're going to use a taxonomy option. We'll put that underneath our search, and then we can configure this. So the first thing we need to do is say, what taxonomy do we want to reference? So we'll drop that down. There's our property types. We'll select that. We can then choose what type of input type. For this example, we're going to say we want to use a checkbox. Then we can choose what heading, and we can just say property type. And then we can use the search operator. So again, is this going to be search and the taxonomy, or is it going to be search or the taxonomy? Up to you how you want to build this up. I'm going to leave this set to and for now. You can choose to display count, so that'll just show you how many properties are inside any of these property types. You can hide empty terms to keep your sort of filters a little bit lighter if you have sections, taxonomies that don't have any results in whatsoever. If you're using hierarchical, so you've got parent and child, then you can set that to hierarchical, and you can say include children in parents. So you can configure this the way that you want. You can also come at the advanced settings, and you can choose how you want to order these terms and if you want to exclude specific IDs. With that being said, we'll just leave that as it is there. So we've now set up the second of our search or our search and filter sections. This is to search and filter taxonomies. Now let's just come over to display results. Everything else should be perfectly fine inside here because we've already set this up. Posts, again, same. So if we need to configure anything inside here, we can do that. We shouldn't need to for this example. Tags and taxonomies, we've already set this up. We're telling it to exclude anything other than property types, and the same with the post meta. We've basically set everything we need up. Let's hit update on there. Now, depending if you've added new different sort of content inside here, you may want to rebuild the cache just to make sure that everything you want to search and filter is inside the search and filter database. This will speed up the results being displayed. With everything being done, we now can just hop over to our test page and take a look. So now we can see we've got our property type, which is our filter, and we've got our search at the top. So if we choose property type and we say we want apartments, you can see there are 2 apartments. That will filter it and show us the 2 apartments, Cardiff and Edinburgh. If we choose the option of house, we'll see we get a different result. So this time it just gives us this Williams Terrace. Now you might be wondering, why is there no search when we actually get the results? That's because we haven't inserted this search and filter into our results page. So let me just quickly show you how to do that so you get a much simpler way of working. I'm back in my theme builder, and this is the search results page. So we'll open that with Elementor. And once we've done that, we'll just insert a new section into the side. So this is our post widget. At the moment, we've got this set up just to show the grid. Let's just quickly insert an inner section. And what we'll do then is we'll put that into our design. We'll grab this post widget and drop that to the right hand side. And we'll just expand this out a little bit. And then what we're going to do is we're simply going to do this like we did before, which is look for our search. Drop the search and filter form inside there, and then just choose our property search, and there's our property search info. We'll quickly adjust that, and we'll just update our page. So now we come back over to our test page. We can filter, so we can say we want apartments, and then we go over to our results page. You can see there's our filter, and our filter is still applied. So it's very easy now to be able to expand upon this and do what you want.
So now that you've seen all these tools for expanding your ACF-based websites, you should be in a great place to choose the right option for your next project. Now, I would recommend taking a look at this playlist where you can see more detailed guides on all of the tools covered in this video. As always, all of the applicable links are in the description below. Now, if you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and smash the bell icon to be notified when I release new content. But if you didn't find it useful, well, feel free to hit that thumbs down button twice, as that works pretty well too. My name's been Paul C. This has been WPTuts, and until next time, take care.